A warband of fierce orcs approach. What do you do?
I cast Sanctuary and just walk away.
The peasants are revolting. A horde of them come at you with anger in their eyes. What do you do?
Ooh, I cast Calm Emotions and have a reasonable discussion with them.
Dude, what the heck are you playing?
A pacifist spellcaster?
Well, I guess we're talking about building a D&D character. It's a pacifist spellcaster.
Welcome to Nerdarchy for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and I'm hanging out with this nerd as usual.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Maybe it's your first time visiting Ted's Basement. It's a place where we like to discuss news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sometimes we even talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell.
The best thing for us to do, I guess, is kind of start off with a definition of what a pacifist is.
So a pacifist is someone who believes that war and violence are just unjustifiable.
No matter what. But I'll tell you what is justifiable, Ted.
What's that?
The Nerdarchy Kickstarter out-of-the-box encounters for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons.
Right now on Kickstarter, we're already funded, so there's a guarantee that you're going to get your book or PDF and maps and book all together, however you want to do it. But right now, out-of-the-box encounters, we've already got 35 encounters in the book, unlocking more as we speak. So jump down to the description below, go check out that Kickstarter, and add this first ever Nerdarchy published book to your bookshelf.
Our first guest encounter has been unlocked. Lisa Penrose, DM's Guild Community Manager, Adventures League Community Manager. She's written professionally for Wizards of the Coast. It's going to be awesome. We're partnered with Arknight. They make flat plastic miniatures and maps.
If you won, you can get the box with the Arknight pack. You're going to get the minis for every single monster, possibly even more than what's in the book. You're going to be able to get the maps. You can run these encounters with object, tiles that you can be able to put down. Using the objects and the maps in a variety of different ways is going to allow you to run every single encounter that's in the book, as well as anything else that you can possibly think of.
We're super happy with what we put together and the team. Go over there, take a look at it, back if you can, share it if you can't. There will be a link down in the description as well as the pinned post. With that, let's jump into our normal content.
All right, so we're talking about this being a pacifist spellcaster. So for this particular, character concept, we're not building this out, like our normal character builds, but we're talking about a full caster. So that's not your half casters, your third casters, or, even really your warlock, which kind of falls in the middle.
Yeah, obviously bard, cleric, druid, wizard, sorcerer, and that's it.
That's it.
The reason why is they are just the most flexible when it comes to their spellcasting.
All right, so we did, a brief look at the classes or the subclasses, try and find out which ones are going to wind up being the best at being able to pull off, this pacifist concept. So with Bard, we kind of looked at glamour. They're subverting a lot of stuff. So I feel that you could easily play that. And when it comes to Cleric, I think the Arcana gives them access to some more magic. So I think that they're a strong suit for playing a pacifist caster.
The Druid, you have Dreams with that heavy Fey influence and their ability to influence others. And then you have Sorcerer, Divine Soul, which is going to give you access to all that cleric magic, and in addition to the arcane sorcerer magic.
And with Wizard, I would go with Abjuration. They're going to be able to deflect a lot of stuff there. So certainly those are your strongest full caster subclasses that I would lean to if you're looking at trying to build a pacifist caster.
Yeah, for the most part, what you're going to want to do is focus on spells that are going to be able to detain enemies, convince them that they don't want to fight you, protect yourself or your allies from them. Everything but actually harming them.
Which goes completely against what so many people want to do in D&D. It's pretty crazy, but if you're looking to do something different, this is a good way to do it.
So let's just talk about that for a moment, right? The idea of a pacifist character in a D&D game. People always ask, So, and this was actually requested by someone. The problem is D&D is very much based around conflict and violence for the most part. I mean, you can have games that don't have it, but it's really difficult. So trying to justify a character that is a pacifist that would travel with these other individuals, that might be hardened men and women that live and die by the sword. It seems like they wouldn't go together very well.
So there's a couple different ways to look at it. Number one, you could be like, well, I'm not against it, I just don't do it, and therefore you're unwilling to kill someone, you're unwilling to harm someone else, even to the point that you would rather die than to do it. That winds up giving you a little bit of a cushion and be like, all right, yep, I'm here, I'm just gonna do this thing here, and that's just that. And that gives you that leeway to play with. You could be like, well, no, I'm here and my mission is to convince you, so you shouldn't be doing this, and the only way that I can do that is if I decide to travel with you. And you're willing to forgive because they're on the road to dealing with this. Or it could be, well, you're looking at the greater mission. You're out for the greater good, and you're going to forgive the transgressions of your allies while they do this, even though you're not going to.
You help in your own way. But it does get into the interesting discussion and debate as to whether what is considered actually harming other creatures. If you're a druid and you cast Entangle on the enemies, or you do something like cast Sleep on the enemies, and then your allies just go and slit their throats, did you really take the road of the pacifist? Are you now responsible for those deaths? Especially knowing that your allies are going to do what they do.
It gets into that slippery slope argument, and only you as the character, and I guess to some extent the player, you're going to have to make those decisions as to whether or not that falls into those tropes, or whether that falls into your acceptable boundaries. When you look at, I know this is a step away from the typical D&D game, but when you look at the stuff that superheroes do, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not willing to kill, I'm not willing to do this, and they know that their allies are going to, and they just kind of like, well, I'm just not. So I think that's the deciding factor for me. If you're going to go down this road, you really should be going down expecting that you're not causing damage. That is your role, and that is your guideline, and anything else, well, that's not for you. That's not on your soul. That's not for you to deal with.
Or is it? Depending, these can create a lot of interesting role-playing situations and discussions in character as the game progresses, and you're trying to convince your allies that they could do it better. There could be another way. Like you mentioned, some superheroes have a mod, they'll do everything but kill. But for a true pacifist, that's still violence.
Right.
So it's a really granular, sticky place to be in a D&D game. And to do it and still be effective, I feel like there's a lot of mental gymnastics going on.
Well, yes, and if you're playing with a very heavy role-play party where you are willing to, role-play your way through combat encounters and be willing to, bribe or cajole or whatnot, some enemies, I think it could really work. But if you're playing a very combat-heavy game,
murder hobo-y,
to go down that road, I wouldn't even consider playing that kind of character, because you're going to be just met with more frustration. But
if you're actually playing the character, role playing the character, you're just going to be traumatized all the time.
So a lot of different ways to look at it. But I think, we should get into the spells, that are going to wind up working. And I think we broke them down by different categories that you might want to look at.
That's a great idea, Ted. So we've kind of broken it down into different categories or effects, if you would. One of the first ones being protective or defensive, and it's anything that keeps harm from happening, whether it's giving you resistances, disadvantage to be attacked, or maybe temporary hit points, or stopping damage altogether. All of those are great protective spells.
So, even right off the bat, shield is a good one, because that is going to, increase your armor class and, stop someone from hurting you. So anything that falls down that road, I think, is really going to be helpful. And let's face it, helping out the entire party or individuals at a time, it's it's never going to be perceived as, oh, well, you're wasting your spell slots. You're being helpful here. So it's still aiding in the combat, even though you're not causing damage.
Yeah, protection from good and evil, any of the resistance type spells, all of them would be great. Aid, also good.
So, I mean, that brings us to our next category, and that's going to be healing. And now, let's face it, clerics are going to be your healers, along with druids. You mentioned divine soul. That gets access to all the cleric spells, so that's right up there as well. Anything that's going to heal wounds, healing spirit, cure wounds, healing word. I think there's a couple of them that are out there, like Goodberry. All of these things wind up being helpful and useful, and you're not throwing away spell slots on weird effects.
Harming people. A pacifist to me seems like someone that would want to offer succor to others, and a healer, falls right in with that. If they can't stop the violence, at least they can reverse some of it.
Could even go so far as to, when the battle's over, you could bother your friends, but you could, offer medicine or healing to the adversary to try and, dissuade them from the path that they're on as well.
Yeah, stop them from dying going around. That's a great idea.
So the next we looked at is utility, things that are going to be, more useful, possibly for exploration or some socials. And sometimes socials do allow you to get out of combat, so that's definitely right there with things like enhance ability. If you go for Eagle Splendor, that's going to give you advantage on your charisma rolls. Super helpful. You could even, use it on perception to notice a potential ambush and skirt it. Skill empowerment is another, really decent one.
I think Lehman's Tiny Hut is another great one because you're able to camp out and rest for the evening without any threat or danger of being attacked while you sleep, and then you don't actually have to attack anything back. No harm done to anyone.
And that's a ritual spell, so if you get it, ritually, then you've got the capacity to not have to waste your spell slots in it.
And finally, that brings us to our control effects. Like, this can be damaging stuff too, but our pacifists wouldn't do that. They want to use things like Hold Person, Entangle, Grasping Vine, anything that hinders the enemy and keeps them away from you.
You can also go in the control aspect of, the mental stuff, like your Charm Person, your Charm Monster, your Dominates. These are going to literally allow you to be like, nope, my will is stronger than yours. You are not going to fight here. So you can go down that road and, make it, suggestion is another one, and make it so that you're just not going to fight.
So those are kind of like our outline of building a pacifist spellcaster. Maybe at another point we'll go deeper and we'll actually build the character that is a pacifist and how they might function in the game, as well as do their NPC stat block for it. If you would like to see that, you can let us know down in the comments below. But before we head on out, let's take a moment to invite you to join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party. Ted, what can they expect over there?
We're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons every month that both players and DMs alike can drop right into their game.
But that's not all. Every month we do giveaways and our patrons get entered automatically.
We're also doing weekly hangouts with our patrons and more.
So quest on down to the description, join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party on Patreon, and until next time,
stay nerdy.